Editor who's been on air from 7 a.m., 12 hours of non-stop anchoring on Aaj Tak, on India Today, talking about budget. So only you're the best person to actually ask what was the mood before the budget and after the budget? What is the sense you've got so far?
I think cautious optimism prevailed before the budget, and now there is a sense of realism and realization that thankfully there aren't any surprises
Yeah.
that are negative in some ways. There are no shocks, but that was not being expected.
Yeah.
So I think it's par for the course for most people, except those who may have been closely impacted by the provisions.
Right. But if I were to ask you, which was the biggest hit and the biggest miss in this budget?
Well, I think that would be more than one, but I would say that the big miss is, and this is subject to further reading of the fine print, the budget documents. As you know, it's a digital document, and there are people who are complaining that it becomes difficult to
Read.
go through such a techno commercial document online. But nevertheless, I think the big miss is clarity on how much this budget and its spending provisions will boost consumption. And why is consumption important,
Yes,
Sakshi?
yes.
Because consumption is what is needed in a economy that needs to come back to pre-pandemic growth levels. 9.2% for this year has already been marked down by the economic survey for the next financial year.
Yes.
And I don't know after this present budgets, which will come into effect from 1st April, minus the direct tax changes,
Yeah.
minus the indirect tax changes, beg your pardon, what will, whether that 8.5 to 8% will remain the same. So that I think is the miss. What is the big hit? I think the big hit is the fact, according to me, that as far as the political economy of the government goes, they have remained
Yes.
steadfast, according
Yes.
to me. Fiscal prudence, which in the most simple words means that the government is conscious of the fact that it should not run up huge deficits. And I think being cautious and being prudent in your savings, and you know personal finance as a subject very well, seems difficult, but it ultimately pays in the long run. And a quick political comment, if you were to compare the response of the Congress government in 2008, when you had a global financial meltdown originating from the United States of
Yeah.
America, the government subsequently at that time decided under Manmohan Singh's leadership as an economist prime minister to go ahead and pump prime the economy. That is blamed by some quarters for leading to a very unhealthy kind of boom, inflation, and all manner of other ills. The present government has chosen in the last 2 years of the COVID pandemic, and even before in its first term as well, to be cautious.
Yeah.
So hopefully this caution will pay in the long run. So it's probably easy to understand why some people may feel a sense of disappointment.
Yes.
But in life, nothing comes easy. Sakshi.
Absolutely, and there has been some amount of disappointment among all the taxpayers who were hoping for at least some kind of a standard deduction to come in, if not the real
Well,
tweaks.
on
Yeah.
the tax front, I think that's a big miss.
Yeah.
I think rationalization could have been attempted, because what we didn't hear from the budget, and again, minus the fine print of the finance bill and other documents which I have not had occasion to go through. If you recall, there was a new alternative model of personal income
Yes.
tax slabs,
Yes.
7 slabs, um,
With
without
no
any
deductions. Yeah.
exemptions. By all accounts, there is virtually no uptake of that slab system, which means you're still at the current 3 slab system with exemptions. Now, when you have a massive mass of taxpayers, a vast majority or an overwhelming majority who are on the old system, it is obvious that they will feel disappointed. Why will they feel disappointed? Because they have been used for years and decades to a system where certain expenditures are allowed to be exempted from your taxable income. And what has happened in the last 2 years? After you do a corporate tax rate cut in September 2019,
Yeah.
there could be a sense of expectation that you've given it for big
Yeah,
business,
yeah.
give it to the small person also, to the small
Right.
taxpayer. What has for example, happened? The GST burden on medical insurance at a time when medical expenditure is rising. So you know that in India, most insurance products,
They're taxed.
not only are they taxed, they also only provide you coverage for serious illness.
Yeah. Hmm.
OPD charges are not covered.
Not covered. Hmm.
Now, in a certain segment of society, OPD charges are increasing because doctor fees have gone up, medicine costs have gone up, investigation costs have gone up. Look at where COVID tests, at what price they started off, for example. I think that's one. The second was education costs have gone up, the complexity of education has gone up. You spoke about standard deduction. Very simply, even if you were to take away from one hand, there is always an expectation in people that they will get something from another. So, why has the government not chosen to do much on the tax front? I think the government has decided that this is a midpoint budget. There is no big political imperative,
Yeah.
and therefore let's uh, let's ensure that the balance sheet is not damaged. Follow conservative philosophy so that you have a strong balance sheet and the country remains financially strong. I think
Right.
that's the best way to describe
Right.
it, Sakshi.
One more concern that everybody had and still has is like, the inflation which is rising. Price hikes across, you buy anything out on the street, whether it's from soaps to oils and now to fuel, obviously, 100 rupees a litre. We are seeing petrol and diesel. Nothing has been talked about that in the budget. Is the budget going to handle this inflation problem which may escalate going on from here?
So that's a good question. Is this budget inflationary? If we were to phrase that question, and I will attempt an answer, I suspect this budget is not inflationary
Okay.
because inflation would have gone up if either there was massive spending of a certain kind, because what has happened is, even if the
They are
argument will be
increasing
that the expenditure
CapEx.
overall
Yes.
is going up,
Yeah.
it's because the quality of expenditure is changing and expenditure is being switched. So it is not inflationary expenditure. Just for the sake of any viewer who might be interested, giving someone 10,000 in cash
Yeah. In
and saying, go ahead, spend it, you don't even have to tell me what you spend it on, versus giving someone 10,000 rupees as a national savings certificate and saying you will get returns on this 7 years later. Obviously, the 10,000 rupees is inflationary.
Yes.
The NSE product is actually creating an asset, giving you returns. That's part one. Part B is a lot of the heavy lifting for bringing the economy back out of the COVID impact into positive territory has been done by the Reserve Bank of India. Serious amounts of liquidity were infused by the Reserve Bank of India. Now you know that that cycle perhaps is at a pause, and the decision minus Omicron, before Omicron for
Yeah.
the RBI was,
Yeah.
let's look at global cues. Omicron came up, again kind of must have led to a pause. Therefore, these two agencies, I think, will decidedly follow a non-inflationary path.
Okay.
The government has also already done it, because whether you give people money, those who have taxable income, if you give them 50,000 more, is a different situation from inflation, which hits the poorest people most. As they say it, महंगाई की मार is always on those who are at the bottom end of the barrel.
Yes.
Those who earn can still handle inflation. So the government has made a political choice, and the RBI will make its own independent
Yeah.
assessment and try and ensure that the economy grows while inflation remains moderate. By itself a tough task, but we'll see how it pans out in the next few
Absolutely.
months.
You spoke about a very important point which we have been discussing even before the budget of the K-shaped recovery coming, the uneven recovery which has,
I have, honestly, I kind of am reminded of the English alphabet with K and all manner of U-shaped, V-shaped. I personally don't believe that the Indian economy is a homogeneous economy. I
Yeah.
personally believe that the Indian economy is a multi-layered economy. Over the last few years, we have, of course, seen a divergence. The formalized sector is getting more formal.
Yeah.
The informal sector is going the other way, and that's why economists who understand this speak about the K. I would say the most important thing that one needs to look out for as far as the trajectory of the economy is concerned is the consolidation and market power concentration. And that market power concentration is clearly visible in certain sectors without taking names, because that's perhaps another subject of a show and we would digress. When in a sector there are, let's say, 4 or 5 players, and if one of them shuts down, one of them faces financial difficulties, then the other players, the remaining players, are able to concentrate their market power, they are able to pass on or charge higher. When you have higher competition, it leads to price falls, and there is a delicate balance. So, market power shift has happened. That's why, on an aggregate basis, from the time COVID hit India, there has been at least a 10% rise averaged out as far as inflation is concerned. Now, it may seem that it's just 10%, but there are within that grouping many commodities
Oh,
where you
yes.
have massive increases. If you look at the food basket, there has been some amount of increase. Non-food inflation is also up. So, the inflation is actually the greatest fear that policymakers in the ruling dispensation have. This government has always been conscious of being careful on inflation. Remember, the Bharatiya Janata Party lost a government in
Yes.
India, a state government. It was
Onion,
Delhi,
onion
and
inflation.
those fears that that onion crisis caused are still remembered within BJP circles. So that's a long answer to your question,
Yeah.
but I think that's
No, I understand that. But one more concern, which we've been talking about, is jobs, which have been a clear pain point for the government. The government has not directly answered it, but because it is doing capex, I want to understand. Will it
Sakshi,
help?
you ask a valid question, and while you say it's not been directly answered, I think let's look at it slightly differently. When was the last time, and uh, I would be very happy to be corrected, but I don't easily recall any past budget document, and like our promo says, and it's a bit immodest. I've seen I've seen several, perhaps 2 dozen budgets so far. I haven't heard a number commitment on job creation.
Yeah.
That is why at the beginning itself, when that number of 60 lakh jobs
Sure.
over 5 years was announced, it may not be a number that the markets and stocks would react to, but for a common man's point of view, uh, again, unless I stand to be corrected,
Yeah.
I dare say that this is the first time that the government of India has committed itself to a specific number in an official document. Now, this number will not be in the actual budget documents, which is the receipts budget, the expenditure budget, the FRBM
But we can
statement.
always hold the
This
government
is a
accountable
speech
5
and
years
therefore
later.
a statement of
Yeah.
intent.
Yeah.
But to even put that on paper as a statement of intent at a time when there is job loss, income loss, is a positive. So, some people might immediately react and say, oh, you're defending the government, you're a government spokesperson. No, I'm just reading the tea leaves and trying to say, cholo kuch nahi, at least somebody has decided to put their thumb or finger or pen, whatever you call it, on a particular topic.
Yes.
And like Sakshi said, we can recall this 60 lakh number repeatedly in the future and hold the government and its feet to fire and say, what happened to that target statement that you had made?
Yes. And in the end, one verdict, if I have to ask you, what was your verdict on the budget?
Well, I find it impossible to rate, but I would say that it was genuinely what I expected. My only expectation was that perhaps there some tax-paying classes would have received some relief just to help them tide over some of the pain of COVID. It's not happened, so I think I'm sanguine about it. And the second aspect is on expected lines, and on Business Today we had been hinting towards that and have spoken about it, which is what's been done as far as crypto taxation is concerned. And I'm
Yes.
going to go out on a limb. There is commentary which says because crypto is being taxed, it means that it has been conferred legitimacy.
Yes, yes,
That
absolutely.
is not correct. From my understanding of the law, taxing income is very different from a policy around it. Let me just end by this one example. Let's say someone has black money. What has happened in the past several years? Black money is taxed and at a penal rate. Right? There has been a very infamous scheme of voluntary disclosure of income scheme, which was basically convert black into white, pay a higher penalty income tax rate. Did that mean that the prosecution of those people did not happen? No. So let me just clarify, and experts can talk about this better. If you are someone, and I have absolutely no, not even one
Vested
paisa's
interest in
investment
crypto.
in crypto, and my wider family, but if you have invested in crypto, and you are now asking yourself, I'll pay 30%,
Yeah.
but that means that my crypto is now safe, it is regulated. Absolutely not. If you find 1 lakh rupees on the street, there is no claimant, you put it in your pocket. Where it came from is secondary to first disclosing that you got this income in your income tax return. It is disclosure which is your primary responsibility, and then you pay tax on it. However, if that 1 lakh was proceeds of a crime, if that 1 lakh was proceed from a narco deal and the guy ran away and left that 1 lakh rupee on the, you will be asked the source of that income. Source taxation are two different things. You are allowed to have all manner of income minus from prohibited activities. Crypto has not been prohibited, but
Yet.
it has not been allowed.
Yet.
So don't make that mistake. You could still see something happening in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Siddharth, for all this analysis of the budget. Well, we've got to understand there have been misses, but the budget largely is on expected lines. It is a pro-growth budget, and as most of our experts who Siddharth has been speaking with all through on Business Today have been saying that it is a futuristic visionary budget and may definitely help the economy tide over the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.